For people who wonder what conservancies are, this is a relatively new concept, and it's the leasing of land from the communities who live adjacent to the national parks. Now, everyone's familiar with the game reserves and the national parks, which are owned by the government, and the conservancies have expanded the area of wildlife habitat beyond the parks by using private land which belongs to communities or ranches. And so the conservancies give them an opportunity to conserve the wildlife, protect the habitat, and to create livelihoods and incomes for the owners. All of the jobs in the camps, as rangers, as wardens, all of those jobs are held by members of the community. So they're earning a livelihood, and they're basically running the camps and the conservancies on their own land.
The big reasons as why community conservancies are doing very well in terms of wildlife conservation is because the local community, which I belong, gets direct benefits, unlike the national park where it all goes to the national government.
This wood is imported from Bomet, which is part of Kenya, because in the conservancy we are not allowed to take any wood or anything from the conservancy, because everything should remain national. So in that case, we get the wood from there to help us to get hot water for our guests.
This is our garden at Porini Camps. This garden is purely organic. They don't use any chemical, no fertilizers. It is very healthy and very helpful.
Finally, you put some cubes, stock cubes, vegetable stock cubes, and some water. And then you blend and put it through a sieve. Then you get clear soup.
So the whole thing is a kind of win-win situation. It's a win-win for the wildlife, it's a win-win for biodiversity because the environment is protected, and it's a win also for the local people whose land is in much better shape than if it was being overgrazed or chopped down for charcoal. At the time when the national parks were first set up, you couldn't tell the difference between the boundary of the park and the area outside. And what is involved is leasing individual parcels, because the whole area outside of the Mara Reserve is now individually owned. And the owners could have anything from 10 acres to 170 acres. The Conservancy movement has meant that communities are able to have their land used for wildlife and to participate in the tourism, which is actually what ends up paying for the conservancies to be there and for the wildlife to have a place to live.
This is our tent, where this is your accommodation when you come at Porini Camps.
All over the globe, wildlife numbers are plummeting. And the reason they're plummeting is they have nowhere to live. There's no space for wildlife. And so the conservancies are helping to expand beyond the national parks and create that space that the wildlife needs in order to survive. Because we now have the highest number of free-roaming wild lions in Africa, concentrated within that 100,000 acres. And the visitors who come to the conservancies are able to see the wildlife in absolutely teeming numbers. Lion numbers can go up very quickly, and yet the lion is now becoming an endangered species. And so the conservancies are helping to expand beyond the national parks and create that space that the wildlife needs in order to survive.
I choose to work in this type of job as a guide. One is because I love the nature. I love these animals. And I love to be with them. I love to interact with them. I love to show people how they are.